Lord Jesus Christ, speak your word among us. Open our hearts to hear, our minds to understand, and our lives to obey. For your word is life. Amen. Please be seated. I'm so happy to have Sarah bring us the word this morning.
Thank you, Roslyn, for leading us in worship. And good morning, church. It's good to see you here today. Now, I believe some of you are familiar with the label or the slang Karen. Today, people often use it to describe someone who comes across as entitled, someone who is demanding and focused on their rights, often at the expense of others. Now, a while ago, a Malaysian comedian caused quite a stir online when he labeled Singapore as a country of small island Karens. Do you agree? Now, some Singaporeans were offended, but others agreed. And one online user wrote, "He is not wrong. I saw a couple of Karen meltdowns in public that literally proved his point." Now, before we proceed further, let me say this. If your name is Karen, I am sorry. This is not about you personally. In fact, I would like to discourage all of us from using this slang to label or shame people. Names are personal, and we ought to honor those whose name is Karen by not turning the name into a stereotype. And just a little interesting fact, the name Karen actually means pure in Danish. That is a beautiful meaning. Now, the real issue isn't a name. The real issue is entitlement. Sometimes we hear a voice in our hearts saying, "I deserve better. This is my right." I think if we are honest with ourselves, there is a bit of entitlement in all of us. I see in myself. I get irritated when the queue is too long, or when the service is slower than expected. My heart starts complaining. Why do I have to wait so long? I pay for the service, you know. And yes, I have also felt that quiet annoyance in me when I press the lift button or hold the door open and somebody walks right through me without even glancing at me or saying thank you. Now, outwardly, I may still be polite, but inwardly, "Hello, I just pressed the lift button for you. Shouldn't you say thank you?" Now, these small moments reveal the entitlement hiding in our heart. The voice that says, "I deserve better, faster, more appreciation." And this attitude doesn't stop at the queue or lift. Sometimes, this attitude also creeps into our homes, our workspaces, and even into our church. We start expecting things without asking, or assume that people should notice our needs. And when they do not do so, we become angry or frustrated. "Aren't you supposed to do this for me? I shouldn't have to ask. Why the usher never smiles at me? This is my seat. Why is he sitting here? I have served here for so many years. I deserve more respect." Now, do you notice how subtle this is? Entitlement doesn't always come out loud. Sometimes it sits quietly in our hearts. A silent expectation that people should notice us, appreciate us, serve us. So maybe in some sense, the comedian is not wrong, because some of us do carry this mindset that the world revolves around us. Our comfort, our rights, and our needs always come first. But he is also not entirely right. He is also not entirely right. Because the issue of entitlement isn't about a nationality. It is a human issue. It lives in every heart, in every culture, in every nation. The question is not whether Singaporeans are like this. The question is, am I like this? Now, our Bible passage today addresses this. Entitlement often grows out of pride and self-love, and it can easily lead us into sin. We lash out over minor inconveniences. We become quick to anger, quick to complain, and slow to serve. But perhaps most dangerously, it blinds us. It blinds us to the needs of people around us, and it causes us to be deaf to God's call to serve others. In today's Bible passage, we meet somebody who shows us a different way of living, someone who is other-centered instead of self-centered. Jesus, the King of Kings, the Lord of Lords, he had every right to insist on his comfort. He had every right to demand better treatment, honor, and service. Yet, he chose to lay down his rights. Instead of clinging to his status, he clung to a tower. Instead of standing tall in authority, he bent low to put the needs of others first. Jesus gave up his right to serve, to be served, and chose to serve, even to love the undeserving. And he calls us to do the same. And that is the heart of today's message. Humility is to follow Jesus all the way down to serve the undeserving. We will now read the passage from John chapter 13, verses 1 to 5 together. I would like to invite the brothers to read the words in blue and the sisters to read the words in red. Okay, together. Brothers, it was just before the Passover festival. And go to the Father. Having loved his own who were in this world, he loved them to the end. Sisters, your turn. The evening meal was in progress, and the devil had already prompted Judas, the son of Simon Iscariot, to betray Jesus. Jesus knew that the Father had put all things under his power, and that he had come from God and was returning to God. Sisters, so he got up from the meal, took off his outer clothing, and wrapped a towel around his waist. And brother, your turn, last verse. After that, oh, sorry, I didn't press the slide. No wonder I'm reading alone. Sorry. All right, verse 5. After that,
he poured water into a basin and began to wash his disciples' feet,
drying them with the towel that was wrapped around him. This is the word of God. Thanks be to God. Now, last Sunday, Pastor Adrian kicked off our sermon series on humility by sharing from Philippians chapter 2, verses 1 to 11, often referred to also as the Christological hymn. He reminded us that even though Jesus is fully God, he did not cling on to his status, but he laid down his rights and became a servant for our sake. And we are challenged to be like Christ, to model his humility, and in so doing, become powerful witnesses for him. Today in our Bible passage, we will see this Christological hymn dramatically enacted. What Paul describes poetically in Philippians 2, John shows us visually in John 13. Now the scene opens at the Passover festival. Jesus had gathered his disciples for one final meal together. This meal is also recorded in the other three Gospels, highlighting its importance. However, while Matthew, Luke, and Mark focus on the institution of the Last Supper, John draws our attention elsewhere. John focuses on the posture of Jesus as a servant. Instead of the bread and wine, the focus is on the towel and the basin. Instead of the table where Jesus sat, the focus is on the floor where Jesus knelt. In so doing, John shows us what true humility is. Humility is going all the way down to serve the undeserving. Now, some of us are familiar with this famous painting, The Last Supper by Leonardo da Vinci. It is a beautiful masterpiece that captures the shock and tension of the disciples, even as Jesus announced his betrayal. However, historically, it may not be accurate. Now, in that painting, you will notice that Jesus is seated upright at a long table, fully dressed, with everybody's feet hidden underneath. However, in first century Jewish culture, people did not sit at tables the way we do today. During Passover, they will recline on low couches around a U-shaped table. and they will lean on their left elbow while eating with their right hand. Honestly, I'm not too sure how they manage because it seemed like a very awkward position to eat. But this is not the focus for today's sermon. The focus for today's sermon is a very important detail that we must not miss. Now, in that reclining position, everyone's feet would have been fully exposed. Dirty feet, unwashed feet, smelly feet. Now, you can try to imagine the unpleasant smell that is lingering in the air. All right? And now here is the thing. This was a private meal. There was no servant around, no helper, just Jesus and 12 disciples. And so they knew that somebody had to wash feet, but nobody moved. You look at me, I look at you. Sounds familiar, right? When the boss asks us to do something and no one wants to do, you look at me, I look at you, and we all try to look down. So maybe the disciples were doing that too. All right? And so at that moment, when nobody was willing to take the lowest task, Jesus picked up the towel to wash his disciples' feet. Now, for those of us who know the story well, I think the impact of what Jesus did may be lost on us. But for the disciples and first century Christians who first read John's gospel, this was shocking. You see, the religious leaders of that day, they also value humility. They talk about it, they preach about it, and they also try to practice it, but all within socially acceptable norms. Jesus went beyond all of that because he expressed humility in a way that challenged the entire social order of their days. Now, here is why. In the ancient days, foot washing was one of the lowest, most degrading tasks. It wasn't just about washing off dust and dirt, but it also meant removing filth from the road, including human and animal waste. And because it was so unpleasant, it was left to the lowest slave. So even for the Jewish slaves, they were not expected to perform the task. It was reserved for the Gentile slaves. But in rare cases, foot washing was done by wives and children, not as duty, but to show love. One example came from the ancient Jewish romantic book called Joseph and Asenath. Now, the bride Asenath, she was so overwhelmed by love for her husband that she offered to wash his feet. But her husband protested and wanted to send for a slave girl to do so. And at that point, Asenath put down her foot and said, "My lord, I am your maidservant. Why should another virgin wash your feet? For your feet are my feet, and your hands are my hands, and no one else will wash your feet." Now, like Asenath, Jesus wasn't forced to wash anyone's feet. His act was voluntarily, out of love, just as John emphasized in verse 1, that Jesus' act was motivated by love. And it was this love that Jesus chose to bend low to wash their feet. Now, John describes for us what happened next. He rose from the meal, he removed his outer garment and tied a towel around his waist and began to wash his disciples' feet. Now, think with me about what is happening here. The king takes the posture of a slave. The teacher assumes the role of a servant. The creator kneeling before his creation. And that purple cloth, the color of royalty, captures that moment. The King of heaven setting down his majesty to serve the undeserving. Now, here is the irony. While Jesus was taking the lowest place, what were the disciples doing? They were in fact arguing about who would take the highest place moments ago. Because in Luke 22:24, we are told that the disciples were arguing about who among them was the greatest just before the meal. Actually, I wondered whether the argument was also about who was the lowest and therefore be expected to do the dirty job. And here is Jesus, the greatest of all, washing their dirty feet. It was a jaw-dropping moment. No wonder Peter reacted the way he did. when it was his turn, Peter protested, saying, "This is beneath you, Lord. I am not worthy. You shall never wash my feet." It sounds humble, but Jesus explains to him the deeper meaning of his actions. Jesus says, "Unless I wash you, you have no part with me." Now, do you see what Jesus is doing here? His response shows us that his act was not just about physical cleanliness. It points to the cross. The water on their feet was a picture of what Jesus would do on the cross for the undeserving. He would wash all of us clean with his blood, and he would wash the disciples' feet, not just from mud and dust, but also their lives from the stain of rebellion and the filth of failure. Now, speaking of the undeserving, let's see who were at the table. There was Judas, who would betray him, Peter, who would deny him, and the rest who would forsake him. And yet, Jesus served them all. He washed all their feet. Now, the story did not end at the basin, because Jesus further explains his actions from verses 12 to 14. Let's read these verses together. This time I will read. Okay. When he had finished washing their feet, he put on his clothes and returned to his place. "Do you understand what I have done for you?" he asked them. "You call me teacher and Lord, and rightly so, for that is what I am. Now that I, your Lord and teacher, have washed your feet, you should also wash one another's feet." Now, do you see what just happened? Having modeled humility for the disciples, Jesus now is handing the towel to them and saying, "Your turn." Brothers and sisters, there is a pattern in the gospel that we must not miss. We can call this the triangular movement. The love and grace that the disciples receive must be passed on in word and in deed to others. Jesus says it plainly in John 13, verse 34 to 35. He says this, "A new commandment I give you, love one another. As I have loved you, so you must love one another." And he repeated this again in John 15, verse 12. He says, "Love each other as I have loved you." Receive love, extend love. That is the shape of discipleship. So now you can do a triangle and show your partner, the one sitting next to you, this is the shape of discipleship. Receive love, extend love. It's a triangle, all right? Now, this command starts within the faith family, but it cannot stay confined within these walls. As we follow Jesus and take on the posture of a servant, the love that begins in the church family must overflow into our homes, our neighborhoods, and our workplaces. We carry the same posture wherever we go. It's not something we can switch on and switch off depending on the setting, because a life that has been washed by Jesus cannot help but serve those that he brings into our path. Since last year, our church focus has been to be like Christ. Okay, to be like Christ. To follow his way, his heart, his posture. Today's passage challenges us to let go of the posture of entitlement and to take on the posture of Christ. Now let's see the difference between these two postures. The posture of entitlement says, "I have my rights." Jesus laid down his rights. The posture of entitlement says, "Someone should serve me." Jesus picked up the towel. The posture of entitlement says, "I deserve better." Jesus knelt down and served. As disciples of Christ, who do we emulate? The one who demands or the one who serves? The one who steps on people or the one who bends low to love? The one who clings to status or the one who holds the tower? Jesus calls us to follow him all the way down to serve the undeserving. Now, in case you're wondering who are the undeserving, the answer is simple. We all are. Every single one of us here is an undeserving recipient of God's love and grace. We did not earn it. We do not deserve it. And yet God extends his love freely to us. And we are called to extend the same love to others. And I'm very thankful that in Toa Payoh Methodist Church, I have met many who choose to be like Christ. Brothers and sisters who picked up the towel and bent low to serve. Let me share a few examples. Now, there is a sister in our church. She is a homebound, physically challenged, financially stripped. By worldly standards, she could rightly expect to be served by her domestic helper. But this sister chooses to love her like her daughter. She prays for her, she cares for her, and she shows her love through actions. A homebound lady with nothing much to give, no reward, no recognition, just a towel and a basin. There's another brother who served very actively in ministry. We know that ministry isn't always easy. Disagreements will arise, people get frustrated, tensions will rise. But this brother always responds with love. He steps in to help conflicted parties reconcile. He supports the team, goes the extra mile even when others complain and do not do their job. No praise, no thanks, just a towel and a basin. There's another brother in our church, a busy businessman. He can easily fill his evenings with more meetings, social gatherings, or even just rest at home. But on certain Friday mornings, you will not find him at work, cafes, or his home. He will be out in the streets of Toa Payoh, looking for rough sleepers, learning their names, listening to their stories. No applause, no publicity, just a towel and a basin. This is what humility looks like, to follow Jesus all the way down to serve the undeserving. Brothers and sisters, do you remember the triangle pattern we saw just now? Receive love, extend love. That is the shape of discipleship. Now, even as Jesus hands the towel to us, we must ask, what does it mean for you to pick up the towel and basin this week? Let me suggest a few possibilities. These are our towel moments. Is it to hold your tongue? To show patience when service is slow rather than making demands or threats? Is it to respond with grace to the undeserving waiter who may be having a hard day, a bad day? This is a towel moment. Is it to serve at home? To help a family member without complaining or waiting to be served, even when they forgot to thank you the last time? Is it to wash dishes, clean the toilet, or run the errand even when nobody notices? This is a towel moment. Now, could it be to take the low task, to do a chore at your workplace that nobody wants? Is it to stay back, clean up, support the undeserving colleague who dropped the ball? This is a towel moment. Is it to serve without return on investment? To bless someone who cannot repay your kindness? The neighbor or foreigner who may never know your name? This is a towel moment. Is it to bear with one another in love? To listen to a brother or sister in your connect group or ministry, even when you disagree? Is it to pursue reconciliation instead of letting resentment grow or dropping out? This is a towel moment. Now, do you see what all these have in common? We are replacing the posture of entitlement with the posture of Christ. Everyone involved serving the undeserving. The slow worker, the ungrateful family member, the colleague who does the bare minimum, the stranger who cannot repay us, the difficult brother or sister in our connect group or ministry. Now, these are our opportunities to be kind to the Judas and Peters in our lives, our tower moments. But before we put ourselves on the pedestal, let us also remember this. Sometimes we are Judas. Sometimes we are Peter. We have been the one who disappointed, the one who denied, the one who walked away when we should have stayed. And yet, somebody served us anyway. Someone washed our feet and extended grace to us. Maybe a brother forgave us for a wrong we did, a colleague who picked up the ball we dropped, or a friend who loved us anyway. Now, at this juncture, I wonder whether some of you might be feeling a little worried about becoming a doormat. Now hear this. Jesus wasn't a doormat. A doormat had no choice. It just lies there. Jesus chose to kneel. He chose the cross. He chose the Father's will. Serving with humility doesn't mean that we abandon all boundaries or enable irresponsibility. Sometimes our tower moment is to wash somebody's feet in an act of kindness. But other times, that tower moment may mean having the very hard conversation with that person to help the person grow up. True humility is not saying yes to everything or to anyone. It is saying yes to God, laying down our rights even as He leads us. Brothers and sisters, humility is not just a value we talk about in TPMC. It is a value we embody a lifestyle. True humility is choosing to put others first, laying down our rights even when nobody is watching or appreciating. It is to follow Jesus all the way down to serve the undeserving. This is how we can be like Christ, by picking up our tower, bending low, and serving the undeserving in our lives. Shall we go to God in prayer? Let's bow our heads. Today I would like to address two groups of people. The first is for those who have already received God's washing in your lives. And the second is for those who have never been washed by Jesus before. So if you have been washed before and are already a follower of Christ, then the tower is in your hands. Jesus turns to you and says, now it's your turn. The same grace that washes you now flows through you. And the same love that kneels before you now sends you to kneel before others. So even as you sit quietly before the Lord, ask Him this: God, who are you sending me to serve? You can just take this moment to ask God, who is the person in your life that He wants you to serve? And when you're ready, you can place your palms open on your lap and tell God quietly, Lord, here I am, use me. Dear God, thank you for the grace that has washed us. Send us out to serve those you bring to our path, those in our home, at work, in our neighborhood, and in this church. Help us to show love and care to the undeserving, just as Jesus has shown love to us. May you give us eyes to see the feet that needs washing, hearts that are willing to stoop low, and hands to hold the tower. And now I will be addressing the second group. If you are not a Christian and you have never received the washing that only Jesus can give, if you have never acknowledged that you are undeserving and in need of God's grace, today is the day where you can say yes to Him. Jesus is kneeling before you right now with His towels in His hands. He is not here to condemn you, but to cleanse you, not just your feet, but your heart. He's offering to take away your sin, your shame, and your brokenness. Do you remember what Jesus told Peter? He said, unless I wash you, you have no part in me. Jesus is inviting you to be a part of Him, to belong to Him, to be made new. And so if you feel a stirring in your heart and you would want Jesus to wash you, here is a simple way to respond. You can also place your hands open up on your lap as a sign of openness to Him, to tell Him, Jesus, I need your washing. Take away my sin, my shame, my brokenness. This is between you and God. So if you are ready to say yes to Him, to let Him wash you clean, let your open palms be your silent prayer. Dear God, we thank you for these individuals who have opened up their hearts to you. You see the open palms, asking for your grace, your love, and your cleansing. God, may you do your work of cleansing in the life of these individuals now. Take away their sin, their shame, their brokenness, and fill them with your spirit and guide them in your ways, and help them walk in the love that they have received. Amen.